healthy and they're kooky, mysterious and spooky. They're all together ooky, the Addams Family. Their house is a museum. When people come to see them, they really are a scream. The Addams Family.
Neat. Sweet. Petite.
So get a witch's shawl on, a broomstick you can crawl on. We're gonna pay a call on the Addams Family.
We're on call Monday. That means everything you want to know about funerals. Didn't know whom to ask. We're asking.
Okay, we're here this morning.
Yes.
Video camera. There we go. A little video shot of Grace and Mandy.
All right.
They're here to help us today.
Is this Cecil B. DeSchiller here going on here?
Cecil B. DeSchiller.
Yeah.
Video.
All right.
Good morning, Levittown.
Yes. A beautiful day out there.
In the neighborhood.
Right. Anyway, so here we are for a Monday morning, and Mike got a lot of good topics to talk about today.
We're
rolling here,
much needed topic to talk about.
Right.
We have two guests from Nova who are here to represent Nova and their duties that they serve in their jobs at Nova. So we have Mandy and we have Grace. Morning, ladies.
Left to right on your radio, so make sure we have that.
Do what?
Yeah, well, they're left to right on the radio, so those are watching at home.
Yeah, those are watching at home.
Right, and we're protecting. Yeah, protecting children. We had the traffickers on a couple of weeks ago.
Yes,
that was an interesting.
You're out of the same office, right?
We are, but we would prefer to call them the anti-traffickers.
Yeah, that's right. Trying to put a stop to it.
Yes, that's right.
Right, abuse and sexual abuse and all the. We were talking ahead of time. I was on a jury many years ago about an assault, and it's pretty pretty heavy stuff. Especially for lay people, and all of a sudden you're called to jury duty, and you get some of these details. You can't believe until somebody actually says something how gruesome that is. And if you have kids, yeah, at the same time you thank God they're safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll start with Mandy first. You've been with them for quite some time. Was it a kind of something you had a passion for, a kind of a calling to get to, or the career? Because not just anybody can do this.
Yeah. So I started with NOVA, which is the Network of Victim Assistance here in Bucks County, right out of college. I went to school for elementary education, and when I came out of college, I knew I wanted to work with children, wasn't positive it was within the classroom environment, and NOVA has a really extensive personal safety violence prevention programming series for all schools here in Bucks County, really starting with children as young as 3 years old, talking about personal safety. Because when we are talking about child sexual assault, as we are here today, we know that predators and sexual offenders target even really little children. Yeah. So prevention starts young. It starts with teaching,
making them aware.
Yeah. So as parents, when we teach children to know what their nose is, or to know what their ears are, or their belly button, we want to teach them the names of the private parts of their body also.
Or if you see something, say something too, for a lot of
No more Henry and Henrietta.
That's right.
We also have Grace Wheeler here as the coordinator for the Safe and Healthy Communities, and you're in the communities trying to, and you're probably on like speaking tours all the time and getting the education, the awareness out, and everything else, right? I mean, it's
Absolutely.
If you know what you're talking about, you can actually help people be better advocates.
Absolutely.
For everyone, right?
Yeah, we the Safe and Healthy Communities initiative is a prevention project, and we are rolling it out throughout Bucks County. And really, we're looking at child sexual assault prevention through 3 different components. Working with parents, working with children, and then really focusing on all of the adults here in Bucks County, the ones who, when they have that prevention knowledge, can put some different tools and strategies in place to protect children.
Right, and also the way you can network to communicate that. So people say, well, pick up the phone, but who do I call? What do I do?
Absolutely.
I want to maybe have all the best intentions, but it just ends right there. You want them to follow up, right?
Absolutely. One of the key parts in the prevention training that we are offering is this last step, which is what they call reacting responsibly. Because, even if we kind of have that feeling that maybe something's not quite right, or maybe we even had a disclosure from a child, if you don't know what to do from there.
Yeah, it just ends right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I'm really thankful that the girls had time to come out today, as a grandparent, okay, recently the funeral directors have had this continuing education where they are required to take 2 courses every year for child abuse and how to spot it, how to know when it's, someone's been a victim of it. And to be honest with you, in taking both those courses, I never realized half the things that I should have noticed, but I didn't notice. So for all you grandparents who are listening, I'm going to tell you right now, it's an opportunity at Nova. Go on their website, find out when their programs are being offered for everyone to be aware. I mean, a lot of grandparents drop the kids off to day school, pick them back up, kindergarten, babysitters' houses, whatever. So it's good for you to find out about. A lot of people, the last show we had, they're like, well, what did that have to do with me? And it has a lot to do with you.
Right. Yeah, and the community prevention program that we offer through Grace's program is open to the community. And the idea here in Bucks County is to train 5% of the adults in Bucks County, which is roughly...
It's around 25,000 people.
Adults, 25,000 adults here in Bucks County. And the idea then is that if 5% of the adult population is trained, including grandparents, including babysitters, including parents, including general community members who often may not even have regular and direct contact with children, then every child in Bucks County will have in their lives at least one adult who has taken this prevention program. That's the idea. That's what we're working towards here.
Was it missing before?
It absolutely is missing. Yes.
Because I remember years ago, when the kids were in school and there was the advent of cell phones, and I thought I was too young, but I thought about it. I said, well, if there was a problem, they could always call, and I could intervene.
Right.
But at the same time, a lot of the schools would have, memos sent home, strange van in the neighborhood, strange something, we don't know who this person, don't talk to strangers, but somebody in the neighborhood doesn't know.
Right.
Those kind of things. To alert, the schools would alert parents on that. And that's probably in the infancy of stuff, would you say?
Yeah. And I think...
good intentions, but it probably has to do a little more now.
Yeah.
A lot more.
One of the things we definitely tend to focus on when we're teaching children about personal safety is this concept of stranger danger, that we want to be kind of wary of those adults in our community that we don't know. But on the opposite side of that, and I think that one thing that's a little bit surprising sometimes is that 90% of children who are sexually abused, they know that abuser. They have some form of a relationship with that abuser, whether that's somebody that their family knows and trusts, whether that's an adult that they see with some frequency in their life. And so then when we're talking about those strangers, those people we want to be wary of, we're almost missing this whole other part of a conversation that we can be having with children about how our neighbor could be the person who wants to touch the private parts of our body, or it could be our uncle. And so we want to make sure that children really have the full picture about who they need to be, mindful of, and then who they need to be telling other adults about when they receive a touch that doesn't seem quite safe to them.
And that is surprising to a lot of people. We want to feel safe. We want to feel like we're living in a community, in a neighborhood, in a county where bad things don't happen. But the reality is bad things do happen, and sometimes that is child sexual assault, and sometimes it happens in our own neighborhood, in our own schools, and in our own homes.
Is there a lot of denial there, Mandy, about, that might happen elsewhere, but not in this town? I mean, there's a lot of that that really does happen elsewhere. It couldn't happen here.
I do think that there's a lot of, whether it's denial or whether it's...
Rationalization, maybe.
Yeah, whether lack of awareness. It's until it touches us, until it impacts us.
Right.
We often don't know the the devastating effect that things like child sexual assault can have. And, we challenge people to think about any of the high-profile child sexual assault cases from Larry Nassar, the coach, to Penn State situations, to clergy abuse. The individuals who sexually abuse children are often welcomed into the family, and that's purposeful and intentional on the part of the abuser. It's called the grooming process. They get to know the family. They get to know the child. They serve a purpose in that family's life. They are there for child care pickups. They are there for the emergency when the family has to work late and can't get home for the child. They're there for the birthday parties and the Thanksgivings. And that makes it even that much harder then for the child to tell if they are being hurt by that person, because it's somebody that they trust.
Yeah. And of course, later on, who knows? I mean, you see about stuff on college campuses and things like that too, that they're always kind of at risk.
Absolutely.
And with safety, you have their safety and securities and all those kind of things, but there's always something that falls through the cracks somehow.
Yeah, and abuse is about relationships, right? So whether you're talking about a child or whether you're talking about a teenager or a college student or an adult, so many times, as Grace said, the person who abuses you or the person who has committed the assault is somebody known to you. It's part of that grooming process. Is there
a NOVA hotline that you throw out there that anybody see something, say something, or some suspicion? Is there a hotline number you can throw out there right now?
Yes. NOVA has a 24/7 hotline number, and regardless of what time of the day that you call, there's always going to be a trained sexual assault counselor on the other line who can talk to you about the different options that you have, whether that's coming to NOVA for some services, whether that's just giving them a listening ear and some support on how they can even handle the next couple hours. I think that our hotline is an excellent place for victims or significant others and family members of victims to start.
There's maybe a tipping point too, where you get a call, but then somebody, maybe I shouldn't pursue it, maybe I should. It's kind of like, where does it go? Can it go forward? And you try to, I guess, have to trust your gut instincts on that, right?
Sure. Yeah. For anybody who's experienced abuse or assault, it's their decision what they do with that. They can come for counseling. They can report it to the police. Of course, in the situation of children, as you were talking about, Mike, with your training, as mandated reporters, we are sometimes required to report child sexual assault to the state hotline, which is called Childline. But individuals need to be empowered to decide how to handle what's happened to them.
Plus educated. To know what to look for. Yeah. I mean, seriously, we've handled, unfortunately, a number of children funerals. And, when we receive the body, naturally the family wants to see the little baby. And you never, you're not able to detect things if you don't know them. Maybe they fell, maybe they're bruised from a fall, maybe, they had a laceration, wherever they fell it was a sharp object, stuff like that. And basically the training they're giving us, nurses go through it, doctors go through it, and it's to recognize things that could be done by somebody intentionally. You don't want to think that way, which is naturally. I'll give you an example. I have he is my best friend. He was abused as a 13-year-old altar boy. And he kept it inside his entire, adolescence and right into his young adulthood. And they say he suffers from being bipolar now. But he's so frustrated inside because he could never tell his mother who was abusing him, because of who was abusing him was. It wasn't a relative. It was an instructor. But the instructor took full advantage of him as a little boy.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, heavy-duty stuff today with Grace Wheeler, project coordinator for NOVA. and Mandy Mundy, Senior Director of the Programs and Services at NOVA, and we will come back after this.
Everything you wanted to know about funerals and planning but did not know who to ask. Tune in on Mondays at 9 a.m. to the Galzerano Funeral Home. More than just a funeral home, Louis A. Galzerano III has been serving Bucks County for over 100 years. Family owned and operated by Louis and his wife Carol. Galzerano Funeral Home serves all faiths and nationalities. A full-service funeral home with a full line of cremation options and a crematory on the premises. 2 locations to serve you and your family, one in Bristol and one in Levittown. Call 215-788-2821 or 215-945-8484. Special rates to show our thanks to all servicemen and women as well as the FOP. Galzerano Funeral Home, 215-788-2821 or 215-945-8484.
I'm Westbrook here to tell you about my good friends over at Golden Nugget Jewelers. Just because I used to leave it all in the field doesn't mean you have to leave all your money at the register to get her that special engagement ring. Head on over to Golden Nugget Showroom on the corner of 8th and Chestnut to get treated like a Hall of Famer. They've got the best selection of loose diamonds, the best prices, and lifetime guarantees. But what really sets Golden Nugget apart is the family-owned, friendly atmosphere. Golden Nugget Jewelers. It's where Philly gets engaged.
Everything you want to know about funerals, didn't know whom to ask. We're working the networking today. On board here with Mike Schiller and the folks from NOVA, the network of victim assistance, and getting more awareness out there and more active, and maybe reading the signs a little bit better. Yeah. I mean, there's always room for improvement there, right?
Yeah,
so never, it can never be off of watch and things like that, right?
Yeah.
I do want to offer, Jim, if anyone has any questions concerning this topic, please feel free to call in. We can take your calls at 215-949-3232. And that includes the staff out at the NOVA office.
Hi, guys.
You're more than welcome to make a call. Any points that we're missing.
But, Mandy, you wanted to pick up on something when we come back back
Yeah, we
here?
were talking at break about the importance of prevention. Oftentimes when we talk about child sexual abuse, people will ask what happens afterwards and what are the police doing and what can NOVA provide. And while all of those partnerships are essential to providing support when somebody's been a victim, the prevention aspect is really about stopping abuse before it starts. And there's an analogy we use often about going upstream. Child sexual assault prevention needs to have everybody involved in it, from grandparents to parents to your listeners who feel like they don't even have children in their lives on a regular basis, because we are all part of a village. And imagine if within the village and we're living, there's a stream running along our backyards, and one of us as the villager is out back and we see a child floating down that stream. We jump in and we help that child. We pull them to safety, and we're soaking wet and we're cold and we're sitting on the side of the stream, and we look up and there is another child floating in distress down the stream screaming for help. We jump in and we help that second child, and now we're even more exhausted and even more cold. And we look up, and then there are 3 children bobbing down that stream in distress. And maybe this last time we can get in and save all 3 of them. But now we are completely exhausted of all of our resources internally and externally. And then we look up, and there are more children bobbing down that stream in distress. At what point in time do we stop rescuing them downstream and we start to walk upstream to see, why are these children falling in? Why are they suffering? How are they getting into the stream to begin with? And we fix the problem moving upstream. And that's what we want to do in Bucks County. We want to work towards creating a county in which all children are safe and secure and free from abuse, and in which all children have the right to be safe, and all adults know how to help that. We're really looking to move upstream here.
Is there any interaction or anything with DIFUS at all? Is there any component there?
Sure. So here in Bucks County, DYFS is called Bucks County Children and Youth Social Services, and they are an integral part of this prevention program.
Okay.
Yes. So oftentimes parents, maybe who are struggling a little bit, or parents who need a little extra help. We go through class to learn how to drive, but we don't go through class to learn how to become parents, right? They just hand us this tiny infant, and we go home with them for the rest of their lives.
I do disagree. Jefferson Hospital has an excellent program on grandparenting.
Oh, great.
Which I had to attend.
Yes.
I actually have a certificate.
That's amazing. That's wonderful.
Takes 2 nights. I think it's a total of 6 hours, but they point out a lot of good things. It's a retired nurse who offers the program down at Jeff. And it's really good news.
Love to start that here, right? Great. Bring that to Bucks County. So we want to, oftentimes parents just need a little bit of extra help. And so Bucks County Children and Youth Social Services is not just the organization that gets involved when abuse is occurring, but they also can provide services for parents like parenting programs and parenting classes.
Yeah. And I think those parenting programs they're very essential. We think about some of that really crucial parenting knowledge. Like, when is a fever so high that we need to make sure our child goes to the doctor to get that checked out? Or what are those chemicals in our household that we need to make sure are locked up in the cupboard? And there are all these really important pieces of parenting and keeping children safe. But we think about this statistic that 1 in 10 children will be sexually abused before their 18th birthday.
Whoa.
1 in 10 children. So when we're thinking about how to keep children safe, what we need to be incorporating into a parenting program, we certainly need to be thinking about that statistic, that 1 in 10 children, and thinking about what tools can we give parents to help keep their children safe. And oftentimes it's very simple. It's setting some boundaries for your child. And those boundaries can be as clear and simple as, my child does not go into a room in this household one-on-one with an adult and has the door shut, right? Or my child...
That's Robert's rules, right?
Yeah.
Male, female, keep the door open.
Right. And it's really about setting up a safe environment for youth, whether it's in your home, whether it's in school, whether it's in the doctor's office. It's thinking about steps we can take to make sure that children are safe. And some people might be listening and thinking, have we gone overboard? You can't be alone in a room with a child. And I think the answer to that is, if those safety rules protect one child, then that's all that matters. One child is all we need to protect in order to say, yeah, these safety rules are working.
Oh, yeah. Back in the day, well, Mike and I are both over 65. You went out, parents didn't really worry about that kind of stuff. It came back. And now you have to arrange play dates. You have to be there all the time. Even if they go to the playground, you have to either sit in your car or be on the swings with them for some reason. Right. And it's just the way of the world now, and you have to get used to that, or you have to accept it.
And I like to think of sometimes the ripple effects that it has. So if we start young with children and keep these sort of boundaries in place for our children, as they grow older, they start to expect that from the adults around them, right? So if we are in a household where before we give a hug to a child, we just say, you look really sad. Would it be okay if I give you a hug? Can I give you a hug? That child will then start to expect that behavior from the people around them. And I only imagine that those boundaries will serve them very well as they get older and older, and even into those college years that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I always think, I have 2 young children still myself, and I think about how many times we would be in the supermarket with my daughter or my son while they're little, and they're in their cart wagging their feet and legs and grabbing everything off the shelves and
dropping it on the floor.
Right. and so many people would pinch their cheek, or so many people would say how cute and touch their leg. And if as an adult somebody walked up to me and pinched my cheek or touched my leg, it would be inappropriate. So for children,
excuse me.
Right. Now that was an
sorry.
inappropriate touch. You asked
sorry.
first.
The cameras are right over there, Mike.
Okay.
So for children, we want to start at the young age and model appropriate behavior. And like Ray said, ask, is it okay if I give you a hug? It's consent. It's teaching consent at a young age.
Yeah, I just remember years ago that you'd find out that, why were kids either disciplined or detention or breaking up fights in school. And then you dig a little deeper. Some of the school guidance counselors, there's some issues at home. It could be alcoholism, drugs, divorce, threats and all the other stuff. It made it really tough for them to learn, so they'd act out.
Yeah.
But it sometimes just didn't really make the connection, maybe, in those days. It just said, well, maybe none of our business. Maybe should have made it more of their business.
Yeah, so there is some real scientific research behind the impact and effects long-term of child abuse. There's a study called the Adverse Childhood Experience Study, ACE or ACE study, that shows the more adverse experiences or negative experiences that a child has when they're young without support and intervention, the more negative their health will be as an adult. So,
my friend.
Yes. So experiencing
stress,
abuse as a child, I may then act out in school, which means then I am punished constantly and expelled, which may result to things like low academic performance or grades, which may lead to dropping out of school in high school, which may lead to then getting involved in drugs and alcohol or maybe stealing from somebody because I wasn't able to get a job that supported buying food even or paying for an apartment. And then I end up in jail. And this negative cycle continues for somebody, right? And or mental health or physical health disorders. I cope with drugs and alcohol and therefore develop liver disease or lung disease later in life. And ultimately what the ACE study shows is a decade earlier death for individuals who have experienced 4 or more ACEs in their childhood. So,
how about suicide, though?
Suicide is directly connected to the adverse experiences. And so while we're talking about preventing child sexual assault, what we're really talking about is changing our future. Talk about the impact on healthcare.
Yeah.
Right? So when people say, what does this have to do with me? We all pay taxes and we all pay high co-pays and we all pay insurance rates through the roof. But if we could reduce our dependency on medical care and responding to child sexual assault in adult lives later because they're sick by preventing child abuse, how much better off we'll all be later in life.
Win-win.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, and also maybe lack of dependence on medication as well. So it's that's always a problem as well. That goes overboard as well. The opioid stuff going on. I mean, there's a lot of stuff swirling around out there, to be sure.
Yeah.
Well, we're in the arena chatting with Grace Wheeler, project coordinator for the Safe and Healthy Communities Initiative Network of Victim Assistance, or NOVA, and Mandy Mundy, and we will be right back as we check things out here on WBCB. Stay with us.
Everything you wanted to know about funerals and planning but did not know who to ask. Tune in on Mondays at 9 a.m. to the Galzerano Funeral Home. More than just a funeral home, Louis A. Galzerano III has been serving Bucks County for over 100 years. Family owned and operated by Louis and his wife Carol, Galzerano Funeral Home serves all faiths and nationalities. A full-service funeral home with a full line of cremation options and a crematory on the premises. 2 locations to serve you and your family, one in Bristol and one in Levittown. Call 215-788-2821 or 215-945-8484. Special rates to show our thanks to all servicemen and women as well as the FOP. Galzerano Funeral Home, 215-788-2821 or 215-945-8484.
More people are online every day to check and pay their bills. Now you can have your BCWSA utility bill delivered electronically. Enrollment couldn't be easier. Just go to bcwsa.net or call 800-222-2068. With e-billing, you have control to see your bills when you want, set reminders for each new bill, and best of all, the service is free. Sign up for e-billing at bcwsa.net. Your partner for a safer environment, BCWSA. Proven.
Continuing on here on WBCB, everything you want to know about funerals. Didn't know whom to ask. Galzerano Funeral Home, and
I still had the job. I'm still gainfully employed.
That's right. Well, I tried to write a letter of reference for you.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah. That's funeral director +1.
Yes, there you go.
Anyway,
well, Lou still likes you. That's good.
Yeah. So we're in good shape. At this point of the program, we're going to ask the girls, Grace primarily, to share which we should look for. Yeah. To be honest with you, I think it's probably one of the most challenging things, because today I have a 4 and a 6-year-old. And besides, when I have to go to the bathroom playing X marks the spot with them, should I or shouldn't I be doing that? I mean, they're all over me. Mm-hmm. And, it's but this, but that, your bird, you're this, and they use the real word. So I don't know, with my boys, you go in the bathroom. When you're done, call your mother.
The age of innocence is gone, Mike.
But and now, like I said, they bombard me when I'm in the bathroom. Oh man, Pop, you really stunk it up in here.
They're definitely age appropriate.
At least they're telling the truth. That's good.
They're 4 and 6, and now I have 2 grandsons in Atlanta who lock the door when they go. I said, please don't lock the door. No one will come in. But their privacy is utmost. But the 2 that live up here, I mean,
Yeah. And there are definitely age-appropriate behaviors for children, and those are age-appropriate behaviors when it comes to learning about our bodies and boundaries and privacy. And so it's a great learning opportunity to try and model appropriate boundaries for them. But there are also age-inappropriate behaviors and signs and symptoms that people can look for.
Absolutely. And I think that we want to keep in mind that it's only about 38% of children who will disclose sexual abuse to an adult. 38%. So we as adults have a responsibility to be taking note of signs and symptoms, because we want to think about that other percentage of children who are not going to come tell an adult what's happening. And I think what can be a little bit more challenging when we're thinking about the signs and symptoms of sexual abuse is that there are often very few or no physical signs present. And so what we have to do is pay close attention to the social, emotional, behavioral signals that a child is giving us. And what we really want to take a close look at is this idea of a change in behavior. So if we have a child who comes home from school most days and is very bubbly and can't wait to tell us about every class they took and how much fun they had, and we notice for a couple weeks that child doesn't have that same energy.
Lost interest.
Yep. Lost interest, exactly. Or let's say we have the babysitter pick that child up from school on Thursdays and Fridays, and we notice in the morning that they're complaining that their stomach hurts, or they're telling us afterwards that they have a headache, or maybe you see some regression in their behaviors, things like bedwetting, or maybe they are trying to crawl into bed and sleep with you at night. Just these behaviors that are a change from who that child is typically are the times I think that we need to just plug in a little bit more and take a closer look. And that doesn't mean that we need to walk up to a child and say, who has been touching you? That's probably just about the opposite of the way we want to approach a situation. What we want to do is come up to that child and just let them know that we're a safe adult, right? So using that after school example, saying, you're usually so happy to see me after school. You want to tell me about your day. I noticed lately you've been telling me your head hurts, and you don't want to tell me about classes. Just wanted to let you know that you can come talk to me if something's going on.
Yeah, and there's also another component too. There's a lot of kids, and I would include myself. You don't want to let your parents down, or you feel like you're betraying something, or they'll be disappointed in you. But in the bigger picture, eventually, that does come out. But there's always a first reaction like that. And
my friend that I spoke about earlier, I asked him. I said, "How could you go all these years?" I said, "Even when it was happening, and not tell your mother." He said, "You think you could tell a Italian Catholic mother that, Father so-and-so's been monkeying around with me?"
Yeah. We're probably like World War II parents, very stoic and kind of bottom line and black and white, and that's kind of how we were raised, things have opened up since then.
And part of that grooming process often is that the person who's abusing a child tells them not to tell and says, "You'll get in trouble," or because they have gone through that grooming process, there is a part of the relationship that child has with the abuser that isn't hurtful, isn't harmful, is nurturing, is caring, is loving, which creates a real confusion in that child.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And so the abuser will say things like, "Don't tell anyone about our secret game because we won't be able to go to the park anymore, or I won't be able to come visit anymore, or they'll send me away and you don't want me to get in trouble, do you?" And that plays with the child's mind.
Sure.
So then they don't know what is the right thing to do. We teach children to trust their gut. And as adults, we often forget what that feels like to trust our gut. We get in a situation,
That is not a gut. This is a gut. Whole lot of trust here.
You got to feel that trust under there, right? And so when we get in a situation that doesn't feel comfortable, oftentimes as adults, we talk ourselves out of that. I'm being silly. I'm overreacting. Everything's fine. We want to teach children to trust their gut, to tell somebody, and then we have to relearn as adults. If a child tells us they feel uncomfortable with somebody, believe them.
Yeah. One of the lines that I particularly like that we use when we talk to our second graders in personal safety is, "You might like or love a person, but not like the touch that they're giving you." And in that way, you validate the relationship they have with that adult, but also let them know that there's behaviors you don't have to accept from people, even if you like or love them.
Is there a relationship too with with law enforcement? Do you do any work with them? Because they were always constant training what to look for. They don't, regardless of their backgrounds, there's always an continuing education process, what to look for, signs, maybe missing something. I'm sure you must have a lot of contact with law enforcement and how to intervene and how to notify and things like that. I'm sure you must have a lot of seminars and get-togethers with law enforcement.
We do. And not only can we provide training if any law enforcement's interested, but we have a really strong partnership and collaboration with every local law enforcement. Every police department here in Bucks County is a partner with NOVA's program called the Children's Advocacy Center, which is a physical location we have 3 offices, one in Fairless Hills, one in Jamison, and one in Percy. So our Fairless Hills office, somebody who discloses child abuse, the child can come to the Children's Advocacy Center, or the CAC, in which law enforcement, district attorney, children and youth, victim advocates from NOVA are all working together so that the child receives a forensic interview in a child-friendly environment. So instead of having to go into a police department or having to go into a detective's office, they come to this really friendly, warm space where they can safely tell professionals about what happened to them.
And if Mariska Hargitay is there, then you know you're in big trouble, right?
Right. Well, we haven't seen her, but if so, we'll get her autograph and tell her she's doing a great job. But it's funny because sometimes people will think that child abuse investigations are like SVU or Law and Order and are all wrapped up in 60 minutes or less, and that's not the case. So NOVA's victim advocates are really there to walk the process along with individuals who've been victimized or victims of crime so that they're not alone. People can call our hotline anytime, 24 hours a day.
At least the ones that I've known, cops and law enforcement officials, it's the worst kind of duty they could ever have. Yeah. They would rather stake out El Chapo on a drug than deal with domestic violence, sexual predators. Yeah. Most violent thing they deal with is walking into somebody's house and it's a mess. Yeah. They're more afraid of that than anything. That was shocking to me, but I guess it is. It's true.
Well, and it goes back to the relationships involved, and that's what NOVA's here for. We're here to help all of our partners, our children and youth partners, our law enforcement partners. We're here to help our community partners and to be a part of ending child abuse.
How about as far as an abused child, the cure process?
Yeah. NOVA has the most amazing trained counselors who can help not only children, but their families through the therapeutic process.
Do you ever have any victims that are working for NOVA?
People come to work at NOVA for a really wide variety of reasons.
Are there any?
I think that there are people who volunteer and work at NOVA who have had personal experience with crime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. So they, so families and children can come for counseling. We offer counseling in all of our offices. We also offer counseling in schools if for some reason absolutely a family can't get to one of our counseling sites or locations. And counseling is really about empowerment. It's the process in which an individual who has been hurt has the opportunity in a safe location to talk about what's happened to them.
How about as far as criminal punishment? Is there any cure process for these criminal? I mean, to be honest with you, you spoke about a village and the stream, and short of needing a swimming instructor,
there's been a few Megan's Law that happen.
Yeah, I know Megan's Law.
There's a few of them. Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yep.
But like people go to jail for various reasons. Stop stealing, stop shooting people, whatever.
Right.
But when it comes down to child abuse, and I just know from a case that 2 funeral directors decided to do unscrupulous things, and Lynn Abrams from Philadelphia.
Lynn Abraham,
she swore, she would be on her deathbed before these 2 would see the light of day. One of them's already out, so. But, what's the cure rate or the cure process to keep these people, just not to incarcerate them, but any idea?
Yes, I think...
recidivism,
it looks so different for every individual. There are different reasons why people commit crimes, and there are different reasons why people commit sexual abuse or sexual assault also. And so there are treatment facilities, there are sex offender management classes. That goes back to, in part, why prevention is so important. If we're teaching children not only about their boundaries, we're also teaching them about other people's boundaries. And so how to not cross those boundaries. We have a really wonderful program at NOVA that looks at restoring families when there has been a child specifically who has sexually acted out against another child, that instead of incarcerating that child, because we don't have a criminal justice system set up to put a 7-year-old in jail, teaches about body boundaries and helps them to relearn so that they don't cross those boundaries moving forward. And the recidivism rate for that is so low. There's research that shows this program stops those children from sexually acting out again, and that's prevention. That's what we're really looking to do in the community.
There are several. While you're talking, I could think of one where they had the register as a sex offender. Now those are laws too. Now somebody's officially on the books.
Yes.
And during the times, now everybody's being vetted, especially we don't have Walter Matthau as the drunk baseball coach anymore. That doesn't fly anymore. Yep. Everybody's vetted by the FBI and checked out. And we had one guy, and all of a sudden, he was coaching somebody and found out he was in Jersey. He was a registered sex offender in Philadelphia. So found all that out, took care of that right away. So every once in a while, the process does work.
Yeah.
And people being vigilant and making a phone call or two, or maybe asking maybe couple more questions than they normally would, certainly resolved a very dangerous situation.
Yeah. I know for me, and I'm sure for
potentially dangerous situation.
I know for me and probably for a lot of your listeners, if you are involved and you volunteer, you go to, your faith-based organization, you're a Sunday school teacher, you lead a youth group, or you're a Boy Scout or Girl Scout leader, and every place you go, you have to do a criminal history check. You have to do your background check, and some people get really frustrated by that. But if we stop and think, what are we actually trying to do? We're trying to protect children from individuals who seek out opportunities to have access to kids. As a child abuser, I have to have access to kids to abuse them. So we want to weed them out of the process. So while it's another form we have to fill out more paperwork before we can volunteer, it's really all about keeping kids safe.
Sure. Absolutely.
I became a soccer coach. I don't know the first thing about soccer. I didn't.
Oh, you're goal-oriented, though.
I'm goal-oriented,
Yeah.
but I had no clue what soccer was. Both my kids played it, but I would watch. Hey,
You were the Bucks County Pele at the time, weren't you?
And I was pushed into the position of coach because the guy who was going to be the coach didn't pass the background check.
Yeah. Well,
What the reason was, no one ever knew. I didn't really care for it, but without
that's why you go to practices as a parent.
Yeah, just in case you get thrown in.
Well, more than that. I mean, you see him at
Right.
work as a coach or whatever, and you want to make sure that
Absolutely.
the instruction is right and they're being treated right.
I got
That's what you
hollered
do.
at for wearing a Heineken hat.
Heineken,
I was so excited. I wanted a golf outing.
Oh.
And a nice black hat, and I wore it when I was coaching, and one of the mothers brought it to my attention. I never gave it a thought. She said, you can't promote
Alcohol.
Well,
and that's an example of, it's just a hat, what's going on, but it translates into, it's just a hug, it's no big deal, or it's just a pat on the butt of the coach, hitting the kid on the butt when they're coming off the field. It's no big deal, but in reality, we have the opportunity to model appropriate behavior. We should probably not hit the kid on the butt. Right?
Yeah, but they didn't mind if the Heineken was sponsoring their team, did they?
No, they did.
Yeah, they did.
Back then they did. Now they don't.
Now they
But
don't.
Back then you couldn't buy a sponsorship on any Newtown team.
Well, we're continuing our talk with the folks at Nova. We're coming right back.
Everything you wanted to know about funerals and planning but did not know who to ask. Tune in on Mondays at 9 a.m. to the Galzerano Funeral Home. More than just a funeral home, Louis A. Galzerano III has been serving Bucks County for over 100 years. Family owned and operated by Louis and his wife Carol. Galzerano Funeral Home serves all faiths and nationalities. A full-service funeral home with a full line of cremation options and a crematory on the premises. 2 locations to serve you and your family, one in Bristol and one in Levittown. Call 215-788-2821 or 215-945-8484. Special rates to show our thanks to all servicemen and women as well as the FOP. Galzerano Funeral Home, 215-788-2821 or 215-945-8484.
Come out and play at Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Win big on the casino floor around the clock and choose from 7 unique dining options, including Philly's own Martiranos, as well as Veracruz and Gordon Ramsay steak coming this summer. Take in a show at the concert venue or visit the pool where it's paradise by day and one of Atlantic City's hottest nightclubs by night. If you're looking for good times, all roads lead to Harrah's Resort.
In the arena,
Ready.
as we do Mondays here at WBCB, Galzerano Funeral Home. Everything you want to know about funerals, didn't know whom to ask. Mike Schiller, he does the asking.
I'm still here.
That's right.
Anyway.
You've been renewed for another week.
Good morning. At this point, Jim, we're going to turn the show to Grace and ask her to explain some upcoming events that she's going to tell people how they can go about getting to.
Right, you want connection. So go to it. Yep.
Yeah. So I think today we've really touched on some really important parts of prevention, but we at Nova for the next couple years and foreseeable future are offering a training which we are inviting all adults in Bucks County to come and participate in. And this training is being offered to adults in Bucks County who live here, who work here, who volunteer here, who come and worship here. It's being offered to adults for free. because we think that prevention knowledge is something that should be available to everyone here in our county. So it's a 2-hour training, and we are holding them throughout the county. Just last week, we had one at the Ben Salem Library, where any adults who wanted to come and take 2 hours out of their evening to come take the training were most certainly welcome there. And what I particularly find useful about this training is it takes a topic, I think, that can be perhaps like a little overwhelming for adults, and maybe just a little bit scary to have to engage in, and it breaks it down into these 5 steps of, when we follow these 5 steps, we will have really great prevention within our families, in our communities. We can expect it from other people. And it takes what can be, I think, a very overwhelming topic and really distills it down into these 5 steps that are very easy for adults to follow. And in addition to that, all adults who come to the training receive this workbook. And while you're working through the training together with your trainer, they'll highlight some things throughout the workbook, but you get to take that away with you after the training and use it as your own sort of guide, your own sort of plan to prevention, which I think is really helpful for participants to take everything that they learned in 2 hours and then to take that home and really figure out, what does prevention look like in my household or in my community?
And as a mom, I'm and dads and everyone out there, grandparents, we're so busy. I sometimes think, where am I going to get 2 hours to go through a training? But then I find myself sitting on my phone, and 2 hours went by while I'm looking at Facebook, or 2 hours go by when I go to the movies. And there is no better way to spend 2 hours than to go to a training, which you come out of it with some knowledge and skills that may change the life of a child forever.
Absolutely.
That if you are victimized, or a member of your family's victimized by the problem that you're being trained to prevent, you may spend years, possibly eternity, recovering from.
Is there social media?
Did I overshoot that or what?
No, it's absolutely true. Child abuse doesn't just affect us today; it affects us for generations to come, not even years.
Even the technological world now, with all the social media stuff, you read those keys as well. Is there a component there? Maybe somebody's posting something that would be a red flag. I mean, without being Big Brother or anything, but at the same time. It could be a sign of prevention as well if somebody's
the training
posting stuff.
Absolutely does touch
to read
upon
that,
child sexual assault in the kind of digital online age, and there are some professionals that just give some really great tips in the training. And one of them I enjoy, and I think that it's one of the ones that our participants will most often bring up as, I hadn't thought of that, is a mother who talks about how at night she turns off the Wi-Fi in her household so that her teenage son does not have access to all of these platforms where he could be meeting people that have bad intentions towards him. And so I think one of the real advantages of that training is hearing just those little ideas for how to keep children safe. And then when we're in a group setting, we all get to brainstorm together and think of other ideas, other tools. And I'm thinking back to a training we did a couple of months ago where a participant brought up a situation I hadn't thought of, which is what happens if we have a parent driving home a teenager after they were babysitting for us that night, and thinking about how that's an isolated one-on-one situation. And then, thinking about myself, I started babysitting very young. I was like 13 or 14 years old, and I did used to receive those rides home from adults, bringing me home, and it was, I thought, one of the real values in great parts of this training is that someone brings that up and we're all in a group together and we just can discuss and brainstorm. What can we do to make that more safe?
Kids in daycare centers.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, who do you trust?
Right. And it's not about trusting nobody. It's about learning indicators. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, little heads ups.
Yeah. So anyone who's interested in the training can go to NOVA's website at www.novabucks.org, or follow us on Facebook. We're Nova Bucks on Facebook, and all of our upcoming trainings are listed as events. Or they can call our office at 343-6543, and we can connect them with Grace to sign up for a training.
Absolutely.
Are you in process too of recruiting people to work at Nova? I mean, it's
We're-
got special. People have a special calling or
Absolutely.
a certain purpose that would like to be a part of it.
Sure. While we are routinely actively hiring, in addition to that, we are always looking for dedicated, committed volunteers who want to come and help make a difference in the life of children and work towards prevention and work with adults who've been abused and help staff our 24-hour hotline or go to hospitals. So always looking for dedicated volunteers.
Sure, on many different levels. I mean, while you're talking about all the technology, and a lot of times, kids being more astute than we are can really hide a lot of things. And we're more like Columbo out there. Just trying to. All right, we got one clue, but this one doesn't match, and it's you kind of feel a little helpless at times. Maybe some of the seminars that you have also pick up a few more keys, and maybe we're a little better off than we were before.
Absolutely. And I think one of the values there is that technology is kind of an ever-changing force. The apps that our teenagers are using today are not the same ones they'll be using even in a month or a few months from now.
Exactly.
So I think when we're thinking through this technology piece, we want to think about the really solid foundation of safety that hopefully will really blanket and cover all of those ever-changing apps and platforms, and just what does really good prevention look like in technology.
As we wrap up here, do you find, Mandy, that you're always in the business of stats and data and trying to collate all that stuff? Do you actually find progress in some of the stats that you're looking at? How many more have been prevented? How many more have been prosecuted? How many more have been informed? I mean, do you have some active data that you can point to that you call for progress?
I know that we were making progress every day. I know that every day children are empowered to disclose unsafe, uncomfortable situations. I know every day our counselors help adults who experienced abuse as a child themselves and maybe have never told before. I know every day that we are working towards a safer community for our children, and that there's hope out there.
Yeah, from everybody reporting, whether it's doctors, whether it's people in the community, whether it's teachers, whether it's kids themselves, parents, everybody reporting, or at least making the attempt to be active at the same time. I mean,
while we still might be struggling a little bit with the downstream effect, I see our villages moving upstream.
Okay, just want to, because a lot of times you're involved with stats, and that's where we are with feedback and surveys. That's the way we work. So we try to work that information and make it relevant to what
Grace,
you're doing.
Where do your presentations? I heard you mention the library as one. Where do you normally get called to, or do people voluntarily call you up and say, "I'd like to have a presentation"? Or
there is no place in Bucks County we will not go. We love to be in all the towns, all of our boroughs, all our townships. What we like to do is find good community meeting places, and those do tend to be kind of in our libraries, or, for example, a couple weeks ago we did some trainings in Christ Home for Children. They have a really lovely community center, so that when we have individuals that are interested in taking the training but perhaps aren't affiliated to an agency or group that would bring a training in, then they can just sign up and come themselves as that individual. We also are more than happy to bring private trainings to any group in Bucks County who's interested in that. And so sometimes that looks like a group of parents at a synagogue. A lot of our agencies here in Bucks County have brought the training in for their staff. We had a group of people come in from one of our local businesses for their volunteer day, and all of their staff took the training as part of their day of volunteering with Nova.
How many normally turn out to your sessions?
That's a great question. I'd say we're generally looking for at least about 10 people in a group, just because you really want to have a group of people there to have a conversation.
I only asked that because
That's the word too.
Work with you on a date to do it at the funeral home. I mean, we can
Absolutely.
accommodate up to 100, but after that it gets a little
Absolutely.
So the training itself
abusive.
The training itself, we'd like to have no more than 50 people in a room at a time, because then conversation doesn't allow itself to become as personal and intentional. It becomes more of a group groupthink, and we want people to really be able to take the information and apply it to their own lives. So anywhere from 10 to 50 participants would be the average size.
Yeah.
And as we exit out, another great hour, great information, and just give the number, hotline. Somebody wants to report, somebody wants to get more information, somebody wants to set up a seminar. What do you do?
Nova's business line, because the hotline won't reach everywhere, is 215-343-6543, or find us on Facebook.
All right, and we may find them back here again, won't we, Mike?
Oh, you certainly will.
That's right.
They're working on a real good project, Angela, who works with them, to get Matt Weintraub here on our show, because the gun laws, or the gun... What's that? Yeah. Joey's Law or something?
Yeah. Ben's campaign.
Ben's campaign. Okay. I knew it was one of them.
But we'll...
male chauvinist.
Either way...